The prison ship floated in deep space, far from stars, far from help. Inside, the halls were cold and dark. Metal walls hummed with power. The lights were red, always red. This ship belonged to the Druksari, a race known for cruelty. They didn't believe in second chances. They didn't care about kindness. They kept prisoners like animals. In cell 91, a human sat on the floor, thin, quiet, dirty. His arms were scarred, his clothes torn. He didn't speak much. The Druksari called him the ghost, but he was not alone. Beside him sat a small creature, soft gray skin, big black eyes, 4 fingers on each hand. It was quiet too, always sitting close to the human, always watching. The guards laughed when they saw it. "Look at that thing," one said. "He keeps a pet in prison? What does it eat? Scraps and lies? Maybe it's smarter than the human. Maybe he's the pet." They called the creature names. Mop, Slug, Baby Blob. But the human called it something else. Echo. Echo never left the human side. When the human slept, Echo curled near his chest. When the human ate, Echo waited. When the guards beat the human, Echo didn't cry. It only watched. One night, a new guard stopped outside the cell. He tapped on the glass. "Hey, human," he said, grinning. "Your pet's ugly." The human said nothing. "What does it do?" the guard asked. "Can it bark? Roll over?" He pulled out a small stick and pointed it through the bars. "Maybe I'll teach it tricks." Echo tilted its head. The guard laughed and touched the electric end of the stick to the bars, but the lights above him flickered, then blinked, then turned off. The hallway went dark. "What the?" The guard turned to look at the ceiling. In the cell, Echo's eyes glowed. Not bright, just enough to see. The human didn't move, didn't speak. Then the lights came back. Everything looked normal again. The guard stepped back slowly. His smile was gone. He didn't return. The Druksari commanders heard about the pet. "A harmless creature," one said. "Keep it for study," another added. They brought scanners, ran tests, scanned Echo's brain. "It's too simple," the doctor said. "Its brain is small, low activity." "Useless," said the general. But the scanners kept glitching. Readings changed, wires fried. "Is it doing that?" a scientist asked. "Impossible," said another. Time passed. Weeks, maybe. Time was strange on the prison ship. Echo began to change, not fast, but enough. It grew taller, its arms longer, its back straighter, its eyes sharper. And one day, it spoke. Not much, just a word. Cold. A Druksari doctor dropped his pen. Did it just speak? Echo looked at him, tilted its head, repeated the word. Cold. They ran more tests. This time, Echo looked straight into the scanner. The machine shorted out. Smoke rose from the wires. Echo blinked once. The human didn't say a word. He just stared at the wall. The Druksari grew nervous. Maybe it's not just a pet, someone said. Maybe it's learning. Learning what, they didn't know. One of the guards whispered. The human's been talking to it. At night, they checked the cameras. Nothing but silence. The human never spoke when watched, but Echo did stare into the lens. Too long. Too deep. One night, Echo walked to the cell door, put one hand on the lock. Nothing happened. Then it hummed. Soft. Like music, just a low note. The lock clicked. It opened. Echo looked back at the human. The human stood, walked out. No alarms, no sirens, nothing, just footsteps. The hallway lights flickered again, and far below the ship, in the engine core, something woke up. In a dark room, a young Druksari soldier stared at a screen. He saw cell 91, empty. He leaned, closer. Then the screen blinked. A word appeared. Echo. He frowned. What's Echo? But the word changed. Not pet. Then again. Watch. The screen shut off. In space, the ship turned slightly as if listening to something far away. Something ancient. Something forgotten, but Echo remembered, and soon everyone would. The Druxari thought they were scientists. They wore long coats, carried scanners, and spoke in cold voices. They believed in facts, in numbers, in wires and tools, but they did not believe in fear. Not yet. After the escape attempt, Echo was locked in a new cell. Stronger walls, thicker doors. The human was taken somewhere else. Separate them, the commander said. Let's see what the thing does without its master. They called Echo the thing now. No one called it a pet anymore. Inside the new room, cameras watched Echo from every angle. Machines read its heart rate, body heat, brain waves. Echo sat on the floor, hands on its knees. It said nothing. It did nothing. No movement. One Druxari scientist said. Nothing special. But the data disagreed. The longer Echo stayed in the room, the stranger the machines acted. The walls warmed, screens blinked, lights dimmed. Probably just power drift, the engineers said. But one scientist, a young one, wasn't so sure. The lights aren't dimming, he whispered. They're blinking, like code. They brought in sound tests next. High-pitched tones, low rumbles, alarm bursts. Echo didn't flinch. Then they tried pain tests. A small shock, barely more than static. Echo blinked once, then smiled. Just a little. Did it just smile? One asked. They turned up the voltage. The screen exploded. No one smiled. After that, the Druxari tried new scans, heat scans, X-rays, deep tissue layers. One scan came back strange. What is that? The chief asked, pointing at a shape inside Echo's chest. We don't know. It's not bone. It's not metal. It looks like a second brain. That's impossible. But the scan changed again. Now the shape was gone. The chief stared at the screen. Is it messing with the machine? No one answered. Next, they brought in a Druxari child. Creatures respond to young voices, one researcher said. Maybe this will trigger something. The child stood outside Echo's room holding a red ball. Hey, the child said. Do you want to play? Echo stared. The child rolled the ball. It stopped at Echo's foot. Echo looked at the ball, then picked it up. The scientists leaned forward. Echo squeezed the ball, and it broke in half. Foam spilled out. Then Echo placed both pieces down, side by side, perfectly even. It has perfect symmetry sense, someone whispered. No, the young scientist said, backing away. It has something else. A week passed. Echo still sat silently, but the walls were different now, darker, colder, and the camera feeds wrong. On day 8, a camera showed Echo in the center of the room. On day 9, 2 Echoes, not moving, just sitting. But when the guard checked the room, only 1. On the feed, 2 again. The techs blamed a glitch, until one of the Echoes looked directly into the camera and winked. The commander had seen enough. Put it under sedation, he ordered. Open it up, I want to know what's inside. They brought Echo to the lab, strapped it to a cold silver table. 4 guards held stun weapons. 3 doctors stood ready with knives and scanners. They injected the drug. Echo closed its eyes. One doctor leaned close. Let's see what secrets you're hiding, little monster. He reached out with the blade, then stopped. His hand wouldn't move. He looked down. His fingers were bending backward, slowly, as if twisted by invisible hands. He screamed. The guards fired. Nothing happened. Their weapons blinked red, then dead. Echo opened its eyes. Still strapped. Still calm. But something had changed. Its pupils were gone. Its mouth opened, not wide, too wide. Rows of small, sharp teeth appeared. Not for eating, for warning. One guard ran. The others screamed. Echo didn't move. It only spoke 2 words. Bring him. The lights went black. When the lights came back, Echo was gone, the guards were gone, the doctors broken, the cameras Fried on the wall, scratched deep into the metal, were three symbols, not in Druksari language, not in any known language. But the young scientist stared at them and whispered, "Those are coordinates." To where? He swallowed. Earth. Long before the Druksari called it a pet. Before the scans. Before the cells and chains. Echo was listening, not with ears, not with sound, with something else on board the prison ship. Strange things had begun to happen. Hallways rearranged, walls moved when no one was looking. Doors opened, then closed without command. Files disappeared. Security logs wiped themselves clean. One guard said, "Maybe it's the ship." Another said, "No, it's the thing, the mimic." They didn't mean the human. They meant Echo, because Echo had started copying things. At first, it was voices. A guard's laugh, a scientist's cough. The child's whisper from the observation deck. "I hope it's not lonely," Echo whispered. That back, word for word, 10 hours later. No one else around. Next, it copied faces. For 1 second, a Druksari walked past a dark panel and saw their own face reflected. But it blinked, and the reflection didn't. Echo wasn't just watching. Now it was learning, but not like a child, like a machine, remembering everything. One doctor tried to explain. "It's not growing like us, it's growing like a system, copying, storing, upgrading." The commander laughed. "Then shut it off." "You can't shut off what you don't understand." Somewhere, far below the main deck, the human prisoner sat in a different cell. Alone, but not really. He could feel Echo. Not with eyes, with memory. He closed his eyes and whispered, "You're close now, aren't you?" No answer came, but the lights above him blinked twice. A code. Yes. In the main lab, Echo was left under sleep gas. It wasn't supposed to move, but it moved anyway. Its hand reached for the console, touched the data port, and suddenly, it remembered. Not someone else's life, its own. Images flashed in its mind, not like dreams, like code. A glass tube, a man in a white coat, the human's voice, younger. "We built you because we had no choice." Flashes of Earth burning, cities falling, humans running to deep vaults. One last lab, one last chance. A creature built not to fight, but to carry. Memory, thought, hope. Echo was the vessel, a child of biology and code, the living backup of a dying world. Its job? To survive. And one day, to remember. The gas failed. The console short-circuited. Echo stood, changed again. Taller, sharper. No longer soft. Not quite human. Not quite alien. Something else. It spoke, and this time, the ship listened. The screens lit up. Words poured in. Origin, secure. Location, confirmed. Linking Earth core memory. Syncborne status, rising. The ship's power flickered. Alarms screamed. But the doors opened for Echo, and outside the hallway changed. Metal bent. Wires pulled back. Systems rewrote themselves. The ship was no longer Druksari property. Echo was claiming it, not with guns, not with force, with memory. In the command deck, officers shouted over each other. "What's happening?" The AI won't answer. "What do you mean the ship's rewriting itself?" And then the lights went dark. A new voice came through the speakers. Not loud, just calm. "Stop calling me a pet." Deep in the data core, the human sat against the wall. His cell had opened minutes ago. He smiled. "You found yourself," he whispered. The lights flickered once more. Then Echo's voice reached him. "I found us. Deck 6 was made for the worst. Broken minds. Violent prisoners. Creatures with teeth and numbers instead of names. No one escaped from Deck 6. No one wanted to be sent there. But tonight, the doors opened. Not because someone gave a command. Because someone woke up. Echo walked alone through the metal hall. No guards, no lights, no footsteps, except its own. The ship was shifting. Floor panels moved, walls opened, cameras turned away, This was no longer the Droxari's ship. It was becoming his. The human sat in a dark room on deck 6, staring at the door. His hands were still chained, but his eyes were calm. He knew Echo was coming. He didn't know how, but he knew. He closed his eyes, whispered, "I'm still here." On the other side of the door, Echo stopped. It didn't touch the lock. It breathed, just once. A low hum, like a memory carried by wind. The lock clicked open. The door slid away. Light spilled in. Soft blue, like a sky no one had seen in a long time. Echo stepped forward. The human smiled. "You found me." Echo tilted its head. "We found us." Alarm lights began to flash, not red, white. The guards were waking up. Too late. From the command deck, officers shouted over broken speakers. "Contain it! Cut the power! It's in the systems! We can't lock it out! Send the bots!" Dozens of machines rolled through the ship, tall, fast, deadly, made to kill. They found Echo, they found the human, and they stopped. Not from damage, not from command. They chose to stop. They powered down one by one, slowly knelt, as if bowing. The Droxari didn't understand. What is it doing? What is that thing? How does it control our systems? They had no answer. But one technician whispered something no one wanted to hear. "I don't think it's controlling the ship." "Then what is it doing?" He looked at the screen. "I think the ship is recognizing it." Echo walked through the deck, the human beside it. They passed cells filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Beasts, machines, monsters. None of them moved. Some watched. Some looked away. But none made a sound. The human looked at Echo. "What?" "Now." Echo raised one hand. The walls began to change. Silver metal folded back. Glowing lines spread across the floor. A symbol appeared in the center of the ship. Not Droxari. Not alien. Earthborn. Engines hummed. But they weren't starting to move. They were starting to change. The ship cracked open from the inside. Pieces lifted, turned, locked into new shapes. The outside armor peeled back, revealing smooth silver plating hidden beneath the Vorthari shell. The ship was no longer a prison. It was something older, something forgotten, something human. In the main hall, a new screen turned on. No signal, no words, just a single image, a map of stars, and 3 blinking lights. One for Earth, one for the ship, and one for something else. Deep, dark, moving closer. Echo stared at it. The human asked, "What is that?" Echo said nothing, just placed a hand on the screen. The light blinked faster. The stars shifted. The ship had changed, and it was listening. To Echo. To him. To them. From the outside, the ship looked reborn. No longer a Droxari cell carrier. Now a vessel of light. Ancient code running through its veins. And on every planet watching, old human satellites began to blink. A voice echoed through deep space. "The vessel has returned." Syncborn confirmed. Lockout protocol lifted. Ships long, thought dead, began to wake, and Echo smiled. The core of the ship was locked. It had always been locked, not by code, not by force, by memory. Deep inside the ship, past the decks, past the engines, past the walls built by the Droxari, was a place no one remembered, not even the ship itself, until now. Echo and the human walked down a long black tunnel. The lights above them didn't turn on. They woke up, as if they were sleeping, as if they were waiting. For him. The air was cold, but it didn't bite. It was the cold of silence, the cold of secrets. The door at the end was not made by Droxari hands. It was not metal. It was stone. Smooth. Gray. Carved with a single shape. Hand not 4 fingers, not 6. 5. Human. Echo stopped. He placed his hand on the stone. The wall didn't open. It dissolved. like it had waited its whole life to let him in. Inside was the core, round, glowing, full of machines no alien could understand. But Echo did not look confused, he looked home. The human stepped forward. He stared at the machines. Some floated, some breathed. Others hummed in soundless pulses. "What is this place?" he asked. Echo looked at the center. A chair, not for sitting, for remembering. He walked to it, climbed in, lights wrapped around him. Then, the truth began. Images, sounds, memories, not from now, not from this galaxy, not even from this time. They came like waves. And the human watched. He saw a city under the sea. Humans building ships that didn't fly, but slipped between light. He saw a child grown in light, shaped by thought, filled with ancient code. He saw the fall of Earth, not from war, not from bombs, but from a choice. Humans saw something coming, something dark, something that didn't kill worlds, but emptied them. Something that learned faster than humans could teach. And they knew. They could not fight it, so they didn't try. They hid. They buried their best in machines. They made vaults. They made echoes. They made him. The ship was not just a prison. It was a carrier. A seed, and Echo was its heart. Not a pet. Not a weapon. A living backup of everything Earth was. Its stories. Its science. Its music. Its pain. Its warnings. Echo opened his eyes. The lights dimmed, but the air felt full. The human stared at him. "You knew," he said, "all along." Echo nodded. "Not all. Not at first. But I remembered the fear." "Fear of what?" Echo looked at the stars. The ones who were coming. On the screen nearby, the galaxy map blinked again. The third light had moved. Closer. Faster. They took other worlds, Echo said. They emptied voices, crushed memory. "We are the last song." The ship began to shift. The core lit up. The chair disappeared, and Echo stood taller than before. Older, stronger. Still him, but more. He looked at the human. "You were meant to guard me." "And I did," the human said. "But now." Echo touched. The control panel. It bloomed open like a flower of glass and light. "Now, we guard everyone else." A message appeared across the stars, not in words. In sound. A pattern. A melody. The forgotten tune of Earth's final breath. Broadcast now as a beginning. The truth was out. Earth had not died. It had hidden. And now, it remembered. They used to laugh. The Druxari, the guards, the scientists. They called him pet. They called him thing. They called him nothing. But now they watched from shattered screens, wide-eyed and silent. And they called him, "What is that?" Echo stood at the center of the ship. Not the Echo they knew. Not soft. Not small. Not childlike. He stood tall now, skin lit with moving symbols, like ancient stories written in light. His voice didn't echo in the room. It echoed in the walls, in the ship, in the sky, and the ship answered him, without question, without delay, because it knew him now, and he knew himself. The human stood beside him, still the same, still silent, still the one who chose not to run, not to rule, not to speak, unless needed, but this time, he spoke. "They'll be watching." Echo nodded. "They already are." He raised one hand. The ship cracked open. Not in pain. In truth. Outside, the galaxy stared, not through windows, through vision systems, through hidden feeds, through every device. Echo touched with his voice. And his voice had reached everywhere across hundreds of planets. Screens lit up. Echo's face appeared. Not smiling. Not angry. Just there. Behind him, the ship no longer looked like anything alien. Its design had changed, smooth, bright, layered with blue light and curved edges, pure human technology. But not from before the fall. Echo spoke. Not loud. Just enough. You called me a pet. You locked me in a cage. You studied me like I was broken. He looked into the stars. But I was never yours to name. On the Druksari homeworld, the High Council watched. A general dropped his drink. A scientist covered her face. A child whispered, "Is that a god?" And no one had an answer. Echo raised both hands. Symbols appeared around him, floating in the air. Maps, coordinates, secrets. A record of all the things Earth had hidden. A map of vaults, of satellites, of voices buried in light. And then, he released it. He gave the galaxy the truth, not just to punish, but to prepare. Then he turned his attention to the ship's remaining Druksari crew. They trembled. They lowered their weapons. One knelt, another wept. They didn't beg for mercy. They begged for understanding. "What are you?" one asked. Echo stepped forward. His eyes glowed like suns at night. "I am memory. I am the last door. I am what comes after silence." The ship lit up from the inside, but no one burned. Not the crew, not the guards, not even the prisoners in their cells. Because this was not destruction. This was awakening. The entire ship changed again. Beds turned into consoles. Cells became libraries. Weapons became instruments. Every part of the ship was now a place of knowledge because Echo was no longer hiding. He wasn't just living, he was teaching. Echo spoke once more. "You feared me when I was small. You mocked me when I was learning." He looked at the stars. "Now watch what comes next," and far beyond the galaxy's edge, something stirred. Something cold. Something massive. Something that feeds on forgotten things. It turned toward the signal, toward the memory, toward Echo. In the silence, the human spoke again. "They're coming." Echo nodded. "Yes." "What do we do?" Echo smiled. "We wait, and when they arrive," he turned to the stars, "we show them what it means to remember." The stars were quiet again, but not in fear. In respect, ships no longer chased the human vessel. Satellites did not track it. No armies followed. Because they didn't know how. The ship had changed too much, and so had Echo. The galaxy whispered about it. Some called him a god. Some called him a ghost. Some still called him pet. But only once. In deep space, Echo stood alone on the top deck watching the stars. The ship was calm, not broken, not angry, just awake. He was calm too, but not empty. Inside him was Earth, not the ground, not the buildings, the spirit, the forgotten knowledge, the voices that had no graves, the hands that built stars and then vanished. And now, they spoke through him. Behind him, the human stepped forward. Same clothes, same scars, same quiet face. But his eyes were different now, clearer, stronger. He had watched Echo grow. Watched him remember. And now he asked one last question. "Was this always your plan?" Echo didn't answer. He simply reached out and pointed. The stars shifted. Dozens of lights began to move. Slow at first, then faster. Human ships, old ones, hidden ones. They came from moons, asteroid belts, broken worlds. They weren't built for war. They were built for memory. Each ship carried something. A song, a language, a story, a warning, a piece of Earth. And together, they formed a pattern across the stars. A shape, a message. Planets across the galaxy looked up and saw it. A single word, written in light, remember. Echo stepped back into the ship. A console opened, his hand touched it. The system asked, "Final message ready?" He nodded. "Yes." The ship paused, then asked, "To who?" Echo answered, "To everyone." And so the message went out, not just to allies, not just to enemies, but to all life with ears to hear. A simple voice. Calm, gentle, true. We were called weak, We were called small. We were called pets. But we were watching. We were listening. We were waiting. We did not die. We did not vanish. We hid, we healed, we remembered. And now we rise. Not to rule, not to burn, but to be seen. We are not your past. We are not your future. We are your mirror. Look closely, because we are not gone. The signal ended, and in its place, silence, not fear, not control, just knowing, and from that moment on, no one called the human's companion a pet.